Hello everyone, Jason Meyer here with some Monday morning inspiration. Today we're going to look at three paintings, and I want to look at them in one, the visuality, the big design, make sure that we get to the light, and then two, let's look a little more careful at the idea of topography. So in this one, I think you can easily see we get to our light spots with no trouble because nothing in the darks interfere. We clearly have a light and a dark. Then if we zoom in, we can talk about the idea of topography. So although we get to this area, we need the lips and the nose and the eye and all of that idea of what's happening once we're there. Something for the viewer to digest, to intake. The little highlights on the tacks of the upholstery, the design on the wood, the design on the fabric. But again, this does not compete or take away from this. It adds to it. Even the her dark dress here, you can see the folds in the fabric and the details in her collar and her buttons. And if we take a close look at the hands, we have the same thing. We have near to far, which adds, right? If these looked like they were right next to one another, if they were all done in this value, it would flatten it out. But look at the detail of her cuffs. Topography, right? The hands, topography. But again, any topography you put in will enhance the light, not take away from it. So let's notice clearly we have our 3 value, our 2 value, and our number 1 value. Light, background, shadow. Now let's take a look at how topography affects this. If we look into the light, do you see how we have more detail here, a more rapid rate of change as compared to the shadow, or even compared to the background? So value-wise, we go to the light, and then topography makes it interesting. This versus that. Let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at this. So you see how strong we come in here, how definite this topography is, how distinct these changes are. And then compare that with this. There's hands. I'm sure those changes were happening just like that. But in order to let you go from here and draw you up, he's not going to let you pause right here. You go further up. So topography, playing it down or playing it up for focus. And then here we could start, look at this landscape. We have our dark trees, right? So that would be our dark, and then our lights held in there. So our big areas hold, but look at how much topography, how much detail is in here. The detail in these trees gives way, right? The size of this tree to the size of that tree, distance. And the painting keeps going, right? So the shadow is going to go from this dark and transition out to here a little bit, back to here. But again, nothing's going to happen in the shadows. All the action's going to happen in the light. In class, we spoke of paint configurations. Well, here's some flat paint to get you to focus. But how about some interesting paint configurations to keep you moving? You see that zigzag? What? Oh, wow. And then a sense, we've got this big flat. And then here's another flat when you compare it to all the little. But how clear can you tell near, back in space, back in space, back in, and back, and back, and back, and back, and back, and back, and back. Right? So, but not only do we have these big value movements, we're describing a little bit more what's happening in the lights. And notice that even if there is a little bit being said in the shadow, it's not nearly as much in the light. Even way back here, the light, everything's happening in the light than shadow. By the way, if you ever wondered what a luminous shadow looks like, well, here's our light, here's our shadow. A luminous beams of light are shooting down, shooting through there. Luminous shadows. Notice how much color is in this painting. We have a little bit of blue here, and some white, and then some dull green, but not a lot of color. Right? A beauty. And then again, oh, even with all that detail, can you see the big dark and how the dark holds together? Right? Up here in the light. And then the light's all here in the center, twisting and turning and climbing and falling and cascading down before it all lands right here. So hopefully those 3 examples gave you some good ideas of what topography will do to the painting. You need the big value design to get them there and to give the painting structure, and then topography's entertaining them, giving them enough to do in those areas. And your topography, we want to concentrate on that in the light. The light is more interesting than the shadow. Have them look into the light. I hope everybody has a good week. I hope this furthered your understanding of what I mean when I say topography. And hopefully it'll help you find a little more, be a little more creative with your light shapes, with your connections, some inspiration for your shapes, and just how does it look to have something close, something near, and something far, far, far away. Have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you at Friday Feedback.